Hello, everybody. The key is not to prioritize what's on your schedule, but to schedule your priorities. This is a great quote by Stephen R. Covey. Welcome to this 30-day live stream on entrepreneurship. My name is Jürgen Moors, a consultant, a strategic advisor, and a coach. And today we're going to focus on how do you balance your role as an entrepreneur with your regular role. And it was a great way to kick it off today to look at the key is not to prioritize what's on your schedule, what you typically do in your regular role, but to schedule your priorities. And that's somehow a mixture between the role that you want to take as an entrepreneur and your regular role that you actually have. Now, when you want to balance both, it is really important, first of all, to understand very clearly and define for yourself, but also with your colleagues and your boss, what is your primary role? What are the expectations for your primary goal? And even when you have a job description, a lot of time part of the job description leaves openings or specifically calls for certain innovative aspects, innovative ideas, projects to take on. So once you have the basics of your primary role ready, then you can start to look at how does my entrepreneurial goal fit to that, because both are always in balance. And then you can also look at how can I create a certain flexibility. But now I'm talking about like it seems like it's for the very first time you're going to do the role. Now, when you do a certain role for a while, there's one thing you should definitely do, and it's one thing is prioritize not what's on your schedule, but schedule your priorities. And another quote that I would like to add is never accept the status quo. When you're in a role, you start to understand from question yourself from all of the things that I'm doing, are they useful? Do they make sense? Can I do them in a different, better, faster, and more optimal way? Am I the right person to do it? Especially when you're somewhere in between, not necessarily the top leader, but somewhere in between. Maybe sometimes a certain part of a role can be delegated to somebody else. So specifically ask yourself all the time from, can I do my job better? It's something that I specifically always try to do when I looked at all of the different roles that I had. I always tried to make room for innovation for my entrepreneurship role by looking at, okay, I know that I have a certain amount of tasks that are partially bureaucratic where I need to write reports and stuff like that. Are there ways that I can automate it? And these days with artificial intelligence, with the way that software has evolved in comparison where I was 10, 20 years ago, you have so many opportunities to make sure that you automate a lot of your basic tasks. So use the tools that are there to automate a lot of your basic tasks to free up time for that primary role, but free up time out of the primary role for your entrepreneurial way to go forward. And basically, it comes down to time management techniques. Um, Everybody had in his career, I think, now or then, time management techniques. One of them is that you always is prioritize. Typically, they ask you from okay, what's the time frame when something has to be done, and on the y-axis whether it's urgent or not. And then you have four groups: something that is not urgent at all and has a lot has to be ready in, let's say, 5 years from now. Yeah, why bother about this task at all? And so you can prioritize your basic tasks in those four blocks. And of course, you're going to work at the urgent one, at the high priority tasks, and the urgent ones in the most possible. And like I said, even there, you can look at more and more. Okay, what can I use as artificial intelligence? What can I do from the basic technology right now? For instance, yeah, these days you have so many software that you can dictate and it will write your report afterwards. So you only have to do a certain basic checkup. This is not even so much of an artificial intelligence or advanced artificial intelligence. So prioritize using artificial intelligence, making sure you have scheduling. When you are interrupted and sometimes when I would write a report, I would block myself an hour, 2 hours, and I knew from, okay, nobody, I will not pick up the phone unless it's urgent. I will close my door in that time. I'll make sure the report is done, because I knew it would take my dedicated focus. That's one thing. That then I knew it would also be ready in 2 hours. And the second thing is, most of the time it was a task that I didn't like to do. So you typically also jump on everything that can distract you from writing that report. So there are techniques. Schedule it right. And also, when you're scheduling, most of the time, most people in the morning are more focused than in the afternoon. So really good work, hard work, deep work, you can schedule more in the morning, and something else you can schedule more in the afternoon. And then leveraging your calendar, like yeah, and tasks manager. Also there you have a lot of opportunities. Maybe you can bring in the help of other people. Your to-do list, this is something that you can add to yourself, because a lot of the emails, a lot of stuff that you can get, you can bring them automatically in your calendar. You can bring them automatically in to-dos, to keep an oversight of what everything you have to be done, just to free up this time for your entrepreneurial tasks. And don't forget, the Pareto principle is also still valuable, to focus more on the 20% of the tasks that bring 80% of the value or the impact, is definitely also very value. But when they are valid for your basic role or your normal role, they are also valid for your entrepreneurial role that you want to take. Also there, don't focus on the ideas, don't lose your time. Also optimate down there, that you can use as much as you can from your time that you're looking there as well. Aspect that we already talked about a couple of times in different ways: communication, collaboration. Talk to your supervisors, talk to your boss, talk to your colleagues, talk to, if you also have employees, talk to them, because you can delegate. They also like to be part in innovation, and sometimes they would love to just take part of your task over. And then I already talked about, don't have this ego. Don't try to solve everything yourself. Like I said before, you only have 24 hours like everybody else, and typically you only work 8 to 10 hours of them. So if somebody wants to help you, if you can delegate. You can somebody give the moment to also stand in the spotlight. So don't let that ego come in your way, because the more people you can involve in your entrepreneurial task somehow, the more efficient and the faster it comes, and the easier it is to combine with your regular role, and you can focus on very, very specific aspects of that entrepreneurial role. So definitely look at that, from communicate what you're working on, talk with colleagues, see if you have people that work for you, employees or a secretary, to involve them in a role. And like I said, because if you have a network that is in other silos or outside the organization, even there you can bring in help sometimes to solve certain aspects. So if you understand this really well, you would be amazed how much you can actually realize and do. One typically trap, and that's the setting the self boundaries and self care. One typically a big trap is where some people, they start to do their basic job and they forget to optimize their basic job, and then they start to work more hours just to get these projects done, because they like to do it and they hope to also bring forward the career. What definitely of an entrepreneurial role helps your career, but if you're going to put in additional time and you're going to work from instead of 8 to 10 hours, you're going to work 14 hours, 15 hours, most of the time it is not expected of you. And the second thing of you, in the long run, this is not something that is sustainable, because people will see that you get a lot of work done. They will see that you also get a certain size of innovation project, and as an entrepreneur you will have a certain amount of impact. And as that grows over time, the impact that you can have, you want to have bigger impact. People expect you to have a larger impact, so you're going to add even more hours. And like I said, at some point in time you will meet your boundary of only 24 hours a day. So make sure you keep a healthy work-life balance. And some people look at that from a very negative point of view, but if I look at myself, and just to make the reflection to myself, um, with triathlon, by doing the triathlon, I learned to be very specific and very hard in my decisions. I would stop at work because I knew, okay, I still have to drive an hour and a half before I'm home, and I still need to do my triathlon training, whether it was swimming, whether it was biking, or whether it was running. Or when I looked and I saw, okay, I always had my clothes in my car. when I looked at, okay, there's a lot of traffic jam right now, then I would work or I would walk around or run around the area where I worked somewhere, and then I would continue my journey home. So become efficient in there to be able to do that. And why am I telling you this story? Because a lot of the ideas that I had as an entrepreneur, when you are busy in your job, you are also focused on the ideas. You are focused from a certain angle. And once you are out that environment, right, when it was on my bike, whether I was doing my laps, when I was running, or in the pool, then suddenly you have, yeah, other impulses and you have other ideas around the task that you're doing as an entrepreneur. And some of my best ideas I had either on the bike or in the pool, or when I was running, or problems, or way, or looking at a different way. Oh, yeah, I don't have the resources. How can I be resourceful with the resources? And when I was at my desk, it was always stuck of how look at how this could go forward. And suddenly when I was at the pool, I said, why didn't I think about that? So making sure you have this balance and don't drown yourself in the work and in the hours. Make sure that you keep a certain balance, self-care, maintaining a healthy, I call it life balance. I don't like the work life balance because it would show that you have two different lives. We only have one life. We should make sure it is in a certain balance. And like I said before, for me, it worked with triathlon. For other people, it can be something else. And there's also something you have to look for yourself. How does it work for you? I had a colleague who, in the end, started training, and he also actually did a marathon. He did exactly the same thing as me. He always had his running clothes in his car, and on the way home, he always passed next to a large forest where you had walking tracks and stuff like that. And whenever there was a traffic jam, he would stop there, run his laps, or run a 10 kilometer or a 15K or a 20K, and then drive home and without a traffic jam. So there are, if you are, if you want to realize something, also to have this balance, then you will find ways to realize it. So this is important when you're looking at balancing role. And this also slowly brings me to the end of this um, 30-day life challenge on balancing it with your own role. Is make sure you add an additional balance that is completely something else, because it brings everything in perspective. Such as sport or such something around mindfulness, whether it's yoga or other stuff, there are so many things, but definitely have something where you can reflect on certain things. And when you had a bad day, because every sometimes has a bad day, or when you have a frustrating day because you also are an entrepreneur, um, then think about going, for instance, playing tennis, and then make sure that the other guy loses or the other woman loses because you're hitting the balls that hard, because you want to get that frustration out. What you typically see is that sometimes people sacrifice that, but that's the wrong reflection at all. And what you need to remember from today is make sure you have this healthy balance in your life where everything is balanced. Never accept the status quo when you look at your own job or your regular role and your entrepreneurial role, because you can optimize, you can, especially with artificial intelligence, take out a lot of tasks or make them faster or make them better or make them easier. A third thing, don't be afraid to ask for help. The help can be inside your own group, can be your colleagues, can be your coworkers, can be your employees, can be your boss even sometimes, because they can also tackle certain. When I look at my projects, when I got stuck somewhere down the line, especially when it was in convincing other people in management, he would take over the role for me and said, "For me, I'll have to speak him for this or for that, and I will tackle this aspect as well." So sometimes you can even ask your boss to help you. Look also beyond a lot of stuff that I did. Typically, also when I talked about this 10-year journey, a lot of the tasks were done by other groups, even outside the company. So look for the right people at the right place, and it's not necessarily you. And the last thing that I want to give you for the day is let that ego go, because this is the biggest risk when we talk about time management, when we talk about keeping the balance, and when we talk about having to choose between your entrepreneurial role and your regular role. If you are like able to let the ego go, it makes things a lot faster. And that ends my discussion and talk for today about balancing your regular role with your entrepreneurial role. And tomorrow we are at day 21, meaning we also end our third week. And like the previous 2 weeks, tomorrow we will make a recap of what we discussed in the last week. And then the day after tomorrow, we will dive into the fourth and last week of this 30-day live stream. See you tomorrow for the recap. Bye bye.